Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Andy here, and we've got some interesting developments actually on the Vauxhall Zafira. Now, I didn't think I was going to be having much progress on this for a while, but as it turns out, something positive has happened. So let's go and take a look and I'll show you. Oh, a positive and a negative. These things always come in two. Tell you about that later. So you may remember a while back, I changed the EGR valve on my Zafira. Now, thank you so much to everyone in the comments. It does look like I was a bit stupid. It was a collet that was on the end of that, not that it had smashed apart, but it's definitely not been acting right. And it was probably quite badly, well, it was badly clogged up as we saw, so replacing it, not too bad a thing. Now, if you remember in that video, I also found out that the motor didn't work. This is the replacement one that I got. Now, I did get a cheap replacement. A genuine EGR is in the hundreds of pounds, and mine was less than 100. So as usual, you get what you pay for, really. And I thought nothing of it. If you remember, what I did was I changed the motor around, so it was the original motor but the new valve assembly, and it seems to have worked, but it's still feeling not quite right. It's not generating the code, but it's a bit juddery, and I suspect it's the EGR still acting up. I think the old motor might be past its due. So I was then surprised at the eBay seller contacting me. I don't know whether they've seen this video, whether there's some connection or somewhere, but they have contacted me and they want to sort it out. What they've done is, rather than telling me to take the old one off, send it back to them so they can test and all that, they said, look, if you pay for postage, we'll send you another one. And sure enough, another one arrived in the post. So this is what turned up. It's an interesting package. It looks like it's been double shipped, first from China into the UK and then shipped to me. So it's got all the EGR labels and markings and things like that I'd expect, and sure enough, inside we have another couple of gaskets, and we have a brand new EGR valve complete with motor. So what I'm going to do is, before I swap them over, I'm going to connect it up and run the software on my laptop, connect it up, power it up, and test it, make sure that it moves. once again, this is quite suited up. You can start to see a little bit of a formation around it. Now, it shouldn't be bad enough to cause it not to function, but what I thought I'd do is I'd actuate this one first, which we know is the, well, to the reasonably working one at least, and make sure that this moves and responds and that the ECU thinks this is happy before we test out the brand new replacement that I've been sent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the Opcom software up and running, connect it up to the ECU and manipulate the EGR. It's the connector and it goes into the OBD port, which is down here just underneath the gear stick. It's difficult to show you and let you see everything I'm doing here, to be honest. There's not a lot of room, but that's connected so we can power the software up, and let's manipulate the current one. And we want the EGR solenoid test and the cooler bypass solenoid test. Now, I do have this problem that it doesn't show up, unfortunately, but you can see that is very clearly open. And closed. Actually, that shows to me the motor is working perfectly. So I'm not sure this replacing it again is actually going to help us, because you can see that is really happily opening and closing. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get anywhere by doing this. But for the sake of completeness, why don't we switch off and connect up the other unit. There we go. That's the replacement connected up. Let's run the software. Oh, helps if you plug it in. Go into output tests again. EGR solenoid. Nothing. Let's try again. So yet again, I don't think these eBay EGR solenoids are working whatsoever. Again, if I turn it off, it should click it a few times. Well, in that case, what I've done is I've given it a bit of a clean up. Might as well use the new gaskets and put the old one back on. At least I know that it is actually working, and it is manipulating it properly. So I guess the fault has to be elsewhere then, doesn't it? Because if that's all still working fine, then unfortunately my fault does lie elsewhere. So let's put the new gaskets on, get the EGR back in place, and let's just check that it runs as well as it did before I started. And there it is, back in place, fastened up. So I did it carefully to make sure that the gaskets were all in place first before nipping it up. Connectors back on, so back to where I was really, not much forward. I do think there's some sort of a leak somewhere, so it might be in one of the boost pipes or air intakes or anything like that. So it does still need a bit more investigation on the car, but that's one thing eliminated, and confirmation that the cheap eBay EGR is absolutely no use whatsoever, and it's been absolutely pointless trying it, which is a bit frustrating. I don't know whether to go back to them again and say that this hasn't worked, or just to give up, because I do have a working EGR. I'm not too bothered, but just to beware about those EGRs potentially not going to talk to your ECU properly. I don't know why, because the connector's identical, but there's clearly something going on in the electronic brain to these or the ECU that don't like each other. So a bit of a frustrating video all round. I thought we had a positive, but not really sure. And I think I'm going to leave it at that this week, because not a lot more I can do at the moment other than do a bit more general investigation into the car, see if we can work out why it's still running so rough. It's not a happy car. And that's probably going to be in a future video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Loads more on the channel, various cars, fixes, and all sorts. So see you in the next video then.